Tom, you saw some data on data that came out with mortgages today, with home prices today. You mind getting into that?
Yeah, there was a Roundup article that was in what I mean by Roundup, in the Wall Street Journal today. They were talking about housing market momentum stalls as critical spring season approaches. And what they rounded up into this, correct, was quantitative look at all the elements that are there right now. For instance, interest rates that had started going down in November have now picked back up to 6.65. And some of that, the bonds that determine mortgage interest rates are already expecting at least a quarter point in about a week, 16th, 17th, the Fed goes out.
Yeah, I think so.
Along with, and that's also a day where they announce all the economic stats. I think this is a stats release as well. And mortgage applications right now, the lowest it's ever been in how long? You want to take a guess? How many years? Mortgage applications, lowest that they've been in 28 years.
Holy shit.
Yep, right now. And
according to this article?
Yep. And the article is just pulling out. What the journal is doing is they pulled together all this stuff in one place. And they said, you've got supply, the new listings are down another 20% year over year. And you've got March to June. What they're worried about here is the stock market looks for all of the mortgage industry to have a really good second quarter, because March to June, it's sort of like if you think of Black Friday for electronics and Q4 is really good for electronics and TVs and phones and all that. Second quarter is always historically just a party if you're in the mortgage industry, because 40% of the transactions of houses happen right before school's out and right at school's out, April to June. And the journal's pointing out that that's off another 40%. And the supply, he says, is stable, but it's sitting because there were experts in there that said in 17 years, over the last 17 years, the buying consumer has never been this demonstrably rate sensitive. That happened as a result of how many years of 2 to 3% mortgages? And they're getting their heads around, well, it's up 3 times. When does it go back down? Because for most of their buying lifetime, they've had this artificial 2.5%, 3% interest rate. And so this article today in the journal just really, I was surprised to see the journal put it all together, all the stats, no suppositions, no spin, and just saying, hey, we're about to have a not fun April to June, which is normally party time in housing. And
you know who is winning today? Wall Street Journal is winning today. I got to tell you, if there is a paper I read every day for the last year now, it's Wall Street Journal. They're telling the story from a very independent standpoint. There is not you almost don't feel opinion and hate and anger. It's just, here's what's going on. Here's what you got to look at. This is what's going on in history. It is, if you're going to trust specifically they've always had a very good reputation, but specifically right now, people don't trust anybody. Like, where do I go to read? They're crushing it right now.
Yeah, this is not a story that's led with CEO of RE/MAX says it's going to be fine. Just give me a minute. You don't have any of that, you know what I'm saying, sort of industry puff pieces. No, there's nothing. And I looked at it, and it's what we've been saying, that everybody thinking that 5.25 is going to be the top end for the Fed rate is wrong. Larry Summers over the weekend was actually openly campaigning and telling the Fed, you're behind the curve on this one. You need to put a 0.5 point on the next rate increase, and then 2 more quarters, you're behind the curve. In other words, he's saying, Jay Powell, you need to do more on the interest rate to get inflation under control than you're doing right now. And when you went to quarter points in fourth quarter, you actually allowed inflation a chance to reheat a little bit. Now, whether that's all comes to pass, but it was kind of a dark weekend, because it certainly doesn't look like rates are going to be coming down now before third quarter. And that's what everybody's saying. Even the Bulls and the Bears are all in agreement. If he raises them a half now, he's probably raising a quarter on the next 2 meetings. We're suddenly at 5.75 at the Fed rate, and housing's not going to bounce back until we get 3 drops. Now that's looking like September, November earliest. So it may be a 24 recovery on housing market, or shall we say statistical relief, so that the market can recover as people put their houses on the market or go buy something, rather than a second half of 23.
And how high does this go, right? Because the Fed fund rate right now is 4.5, give or take. And then I think the historical long-term average is 4.6. And then, repeating history or being a student of history, I'm always shocked to find out that in the 80s that mortgage rates were double digits.
Yeah.
12%, 15%, 20%. What? Like, those are credit card numbers of what you used to get a mortgage for.
Right.
It's insane to me. What was the first year you bought a house, by the way?
The first year I bought a house I was 26, and I think I got a 7% mortgage.
And what year was that?
So 26, 62, 26, it was 88. Yeah. It was 88, 89.
And that would have been a great rate in the late 80s, 7.5%.
And by the way, I remember talking to the guy that was doing my mortgage and feeling like I just locked in on a little dip.
He just hooked you up. And right now, I mean, mortgage rates are 6.5%. I'm just saying, like, as someone that is, likes to keep their money in cash and invest and rent and kind of invest the difference, I don't even know when a good time to even think about buying right now. Is 6.5 the bottom, or are we trending towards double digits? That's insane to me.
And that's what the Journal was talking about, is that there's experts out there that are saying, objectively, not opinion, buyers in their mid-30s right now have never seen interest rates like that, and these are the most rate-sensitive buyers that they've ever seen.
Yeah, if you're a millennial and you're looking to buy a house, and all you're used to is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like, and all of a sudden it's 6, 7.
By the way,
Uncle Adam talks to his friend Tom about 6.6%
but by
rates.
the way,
I don't remember that.
This is where we need to stay. I know this is not popular, but this is where we need to stay. We keep talking about how much fake money was made, 128 months economic expansion. COVID doesn't come. That could have gone another year or two. Could have been 150 months. It's not. You take COVID out, it's 150 months. Keeping rates as whatever it was, and people are just funding everything. This is where it needs to stay for a minute. Okay. The problem is going to happen, Tom, is let's just say inflation does drop to 2%. There's like, okay, guess what? Let's start lowering it again. No. Pump the brakes. If you really wanted to start breathing a little bit, you got to get off of steroids and growth hormone for a couple of years. Okay,
that's right.
We've been on it for way too long. So that part, no one's going to know, because who's going to replace Jerome Powell? Who the hell is going to replace? You know how last time we were having a conversation with Crowder, and the question was, so Susan stepped down, right? Everyone's like, well, you know what? The great story, Susan from
Susan
YouTube.
Scott. No, Susan Wojcicki.
Susan Wojcicki from YouTube just stepped down and because she did this wrong. Well, the person that replaced her is worse, is what the fear is. Like, hey, Jack Dorsey's stepping. About time Jack Dorsey steps down from Twitter. No, bro. You wanted Jack Dorsey to stay.
Exactly.
The guy that replaced him is worse. So as much as people are, giving Powell a hard time that he's pounding people on upstairs, and I know you always talk about his bedroom activity, this is an inside joke for Tom. Tom's got very interesting
it's
jokes.
An inside joke. I refer to the economy as a poor cheerleader up in her bedroom, and that Jerome Powell is going to keep pounding that cheerleader till her parents come home, and parents coming home is
all right, Tom.
2% interest rates. So,
now you know. The new CEO of YouTube is Neil Mohan, and you're saying that he's
I'm not
supposed to be.
saying that. I'm not saying
they
that.
are saying.
I'm not. The question is sometimes you have to, worry who's like, for example, okay, we got to get rid of Putin.
Right.
Cool. Who's replacing him?
Yeah.
Right.
We got to get rid of, okay, cool. Yeah. Who's replacing him? So that is just as much of a concern as it is. At least you have enough data to know how this person's going to be.
Right. The markets don't like uncertainty, so just keep the guy in until this phase is over. Because you switch mid game, people will be like, I got to figure out the new guy.
I actually think Powell's doing an okay job.
I was just going to ask you,
I don't know if I'm going to sit here telling you Powell's the GOAT or he's doing.
I agree.
I actually think he is. If you look at him compared to some of the other guys, I think he's actually doing an okay job.
He's doing way better than Grandma.
Than Janet Yellen?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
or what,
that's
Ben
not
Bernanke
even a question.
or Greenspan?
Right?
Exactly
That's
right.
not even a question. But yeah, so here's a question for you. Have you ever had any interactions with Michael Burry? Have you ever done anything?
No.
Why is he so low key? He's on Twitter one day, he shuts it down, comes back again, tweets, closes it again, doesn't do interviews, doesn't talk to people. Strong insight, very interesting. He's been right one too many times. What do you know about Michael Burry?
Well, so after the housing crisis, he made a speech excoriating Congress, saying that they all knew this was coming. It's all their fault. Then he started being investigated by the feds and tax and IRS. So ever since that experience after the housing crisis, I don't think he is one to be on the public stage. But he is. He knows what's going on with the COVID vaccines because he's intimated that he's investing in some of these plays on that on a stock individual basis, like buying blood thinning companies and shorting other companies. So he's already playing the COVID vaccine stuff.
To me, he's a very interesting guy to watch closely. I see him as a stud. I think he's got courage. I think he's tough. But I hope, I wish he was a little bit more
vocal. Yeah, I think it would be great if he came out and gave his thesis on what's going on with COVID vaccines.
Dude, I would love nothing more than to have a 2-hour conversation with this guy, just to sit down and say, Michael, what do we expect and what's going on? And by the way, I also think he's a crusade guy, meaning I think he's a true believer. I don't think it's just about money for him. I don't think he's just like, hey, he wants to get rich and, go party in, Thailand and do whatever some of these guys, I think that's a guy that really cares about what's going on. He has concerns. He has good insight. I think he needs to be more vocal. So if you know Michael Burry, if anybody knows Michael Burry, you're a friend of his or you're a close colleague of his, kind of let him know I'd like to talk. I guess what I'm trying to say,
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.